For you to make a great presentation, think of your opening, think of your close, and keep them very close together. Or what we will call, think of your primacy, think of your recency, and keep it very close and very engaging together. My name is George AC, and welcome to Public Speaking School. And interestingly, today we'll be talking about primacy and recency in public speaking. The rule, the law of primacy and recency in public speaking. So what's primacy and what's recency? It's very simple. We call primacy your opening, and of course we call recency your close. Every speech or pitch has three parts. I'm sure you know that by now. It has the opening, it has the body, and it has the close, or what in speech writing we'll call the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. But in public speaking, we don't say introduction very often. Very often we use the word opening, and technically we use the word primacy. You want to learn how to spell it? I'll spell it for you. Primacy. And then we also have the close or conclusion. We don't call it conclusion, we call it the close in public speaking, and it's called recency. Recency. Why is it important that you know about this? Because that's practically what public speaking is all about. So today we're going to be learning how to make fantastic openings and opening introductions, and how to also conclude or close our speeches. Let's start with the opening. The opening is a very important part of your presentation, and it is supposed to do a few things. It's supposed to wow the audience. So what opening, what introduction, what primacy will you put out there that will wow the audience? The body of your presentation is supposed to woo the audience, to draw them into your subject matter. And of course, the close is supposed to win the audience. So think in terms of wowing people, wooing people, and winning people. How do you wow the audience? How do you woo the audience? And how do you win the audience? So let's quickly learn today a few techniques you can use for your next presentation, for your next speech, for your next pitch, that can make you become a fantastic speaker and can help you give fantastic speeches. Let me start with what I call Alex Leon's opening strategies. Alex Leon is a top speaker, and he says that if you're going to present and you want to have a fantastic opening, these are a few things you must pay attention to. Number one, you need to have an attention grabber. What is your attention grabber? What's that thing that you will say? What's that word you will say? Those things you will say that will get the attention of the audience. You need to find it. Perhaps you want to start with a quote, or you want to start with a story, or you want to start with something, an icebreaker. We'll discuss icebreakers shortly. So you need to start your presentation with an attention grabber. Number two, he says that you need to find a way to say that thing you're saying, and show the audience how relevant it is to them. So we call it audience relevance. How is presentation going to be relevant to them? Number three, and it's very important you pay attention to this, you've got to establish your credibility. Establish your credibility. So he says attention grabber, the first thing you must pay attention to. Audience relevance, how's the message, the speech or the pitch relevant to the audience? Number three, personal credibility. Who are you? Let me begin by using that so you can understand how it works. My name is George AC, and I've been in business for more than 14 years. I've been speaking professionally for 15 years. I've been around the world and Nigeria, and particularly in Nigeria, I've trained organizations like MTN, DHL, and have a lot of experience in pitching, persuasion, and sales. And that's the value I'm bringing to you today. I can assure you that the few minutes we'll be spending together will not be a waste of your time. What I just did is sharing my personal credibility. Very often when you speak on platforms, the MC or the host of the event may not do a great job at that. So you need to take your time to establish your credibility, because the audiences are evaluating. They are thinking in their mind, why should I be listening to that guy on the podium. Your job is to make sure that you establish your credibility. We call it pre-framing, the ability to pre-frame, to condition the mind of the audience to believe that you're worth the while. So the next thing that is part of the opening is called a brief preview of what you're trying to say. So you summarize a few things you're going to say as you begin to speak. So Alex Leon says, first, you need to have an attention grabber. 2, show us how the speech is relevant to your audience. 3, establish your credibility. And 4, give us a brief preview. I think it's a fantastic way to fly. Let me give you a few ideas that will help you, really help you in crafting a good opening. One of the major mistakes speakers make is that when they start their presentation, they fail to understand the rule of primacy. You see, people remember, and their attention span is very heightened at your opening and at your close. So you want to be very particular about the first words you say and how you wrap up your presentation. To add bites to your presentation, use this simple formula. You want to take up your biro or your pen and then your notes and write this formula down. S-A-M-E. S, then put squared. A-M-E. Let's find out what this acoustic or this acronym means. S stands for story. What's your story? Start with a story. Start your presentation with a very powerful story. What's your story? Okay? We have different kinds of stories. We have logo stories, we have success stories, we have personal failures, we have basic stories, we have prospect stories, we have customer stories, and we have different kinds of stories. We have backstories, we have feature function stories. What story do you want to share at the beginning of your presentation? People may forget everything, but they will not forget the story. Let's say you did a pitch in front of a panel of investors or some customers, and you talked about your story, how you were inspired to start that business, not just the business, how you were inspired to start the business, the story around it. Guess what? When these investors or these people who are listening to the panel go to talk about your business to the board or wherever, they will not be telling the board about the facts and the figures you shared. They will be repeating and telling the board about the stories that you share, because the best part about stories is that stories are repeated. Your stories are repeated. Stories are remembered. Stories connect with our emotions, and they also connect with our imagination. And so you want to use that S factor, stories. How do you tell a story? A short story perhaps. And I think that if you're doing a presentation at the beginning, begin with a short story. And the story should lead to a particular point, especially your first point, your punchline. So you want to tell a story that will be very engaging. So S stands for story. Let me give you some lines that will help you. You won't believe what happened to me today. Those are your first words. No, you won't believe what happened to me today. Something happened to me the other day. My daughter, my mom, I traveled to, you can begin, that's your first, you didn't say good morning, you didn't say my name is George, you didn't start with good morning or my name is George or good afternoon or good evening, you didn't even greet people, you just started with the microphone in your hands or, on that platform, you say, you won't believe what happened to me today. I mean, I went to the airport and I met a colleague of many, many years. And this person brings a lot of memories to me. How that he failed, he looked very successful. He was dressed in his best suit, in his best good Giorgio Armani suit. And he was looking very good, smelling very good. And it was so good to me. I remember how poor and poverty-stricken he was many, many years ago. And then he told me a story of how his life changed. Today, I want to talk about how lives can change in a short period of time because they apply themselves to certain principles. My name is George Asian. Welcome. You see, I began with a story, a fictitious story, as it were, and then I introduced myself. So using stories to start your presentation will cut across to people very, very strongly. So S stands for stories. Remember I said when you're writing the S-A-M-E, that you should put S squared. So what does the second S stand for? The second S stands for simile. What does simile mean? Remember the English language. Simile means whenever you compare stuff, you use A is like B or A is as B. Okay, so you can use simile to add bites to your opening. That's what the second S means. What does the A mean? A means analogies. Use analogies. A simply means analogies. Use analogies. Like for example, you say A is to B as C is to D, A is to B as C is to D. That kind of example. This is to this as that is to that. So use analogies. Analogies are quite powerful. One very interesting scientist, very powerful scientist came to teach at a conference, and he was talking about technical terms. Then he noticed that the audience weren't grabbing the things he was sharing. Guess what he did? He switched. You know what he did? He started talking about, he would say, okay, this machine I just described is like you putting a toilet cleaner and flushing it, and literally cleaning the toilet, the cistern, and then flushing it. That's how that machine looks like. And so by using that analogy of the toilet cleaner or the cistern cleaner and flushing, it painted a picture of what that machine will look like. That's using analogies. And great speakers do that. They compare and contrast things so as to inspire the imagination of people. Begin by using that. In fact, don't just do it, at the beginning. Put it through all of your presentation. Through the body and so on, so that people can imagine. Your goal is not just to tell the audience, but to show the audience what you're talking about. So let's go to what M means. M stands for metaphors. I give my students an assignment, and I want to give you that assignment to do. Go on Google. Would you do that? Go to Google and search for metaphors. What's a metaphor? Metaphor is like when you say something very directly, like this example: trees are the lungs of the earth. Trees are the lungs of the earth. Say three. When you say A is B or A are B, you are using metaphor. Metaphors are they come with a lot of imagine. They stimulate our minds, and so you want to incorporate metaphors in your presentation, even in your writing. It stimulates it. It's also like using analogies, but it's stronger. It's more powerful. So this is one story someone said. He came on stage, a speaker, and he began by saying that, "Hi everyone, my name is XYZ, and I don't want to waste your time today. I want to show you how you can make money from water. How you can make money from water." And everybody stopped and said, "Hey, how do you make money from water? How you can make money?" So he brought out a machine, and basically what the machine does is that it's put into water, and when you put it on, it's like a generator. It enables you to convert water to electricity, and that can supply light to people in the homes in America, and then they get to pay him. So rather than say, "I want to tell you about a machine that when you put in water, it will generate electricity, and then when you supply to people, they get to pay you," he just used the metaphor. I want to show you how we can make money from water. That is amazing. So being that descriptive is very powerful. Metaphors are very, very strong. And I give my students this assignment. I want you to do it. Try and do it. It'll help you a whole lot. The assignment is do you know what idiomatic expressions are? There are a lot of idiomatic expressions. So go online and look up for idiomatic expressions. Like we say, bucket. He kicked the bucket. He kicked the bucket yesterday. That's an idiomatic expression. Look out for as many idiomatic expressions as you can. All right, like 50. Write them down on your notes. The thing about writing is that it allows you to get into your mind. Literally sit down and write down all of your idiomatic expressions. Just write them down. And then the next thing you want to do is that you want to find a way to incorporate these idiomatic expressions into your presentation. And idiomatic expression uses a lot of metaphors, a lot of imagery in your idiomatic expressions. So look out for them and use them. You'll become a very fantastic conversationalist, and you'll be a massive speaker. So metaphors are powerful ways to open your presentation. Let's go to the last E. The last E is simply examples. When you speak, how dare you speak without sharing examples? So when you make a statement, make sure that you add examples. So how do you open a presentation? I want to give you some ideas. I want you to take down these notes. I'm going to list out a few ways you can open your speech or your pitch. Number one, establish credibility. Now, it seems as though I'm overflogging that. But when it comes to persuasion, ethos, that is, the credibility of the speaker matters. Credibility facilitates persuasion. If you're going to persuade anybody to buy in, you want to tell them about your expertise, you want to tell them about your pedigree, you want to tell them about your credibility. This is so important. because that's how you get them to buy in. So establish your credibility. The MC may not have done a fantastic job in doing that. So pre-frame the audience by establishing credibility. Don't be too braggadocious, but make sure that you establish credibility. Another way to open a presentation, like I said earlier, is to begin with a story, a short story. A personal story will make a lot of sense. Another way to open your presentation is to begin with an icebreaker. Now, something happened. I watched a video by Toastmasters. You know what Toastmasters? Toastmasters began a few years ago. I mean, maybe almost 100 years ago. And they help people to speak. And I'm sure in your city, whether you're in Lagos, Abuja, in South Africa, Ghana, and watching this, you have a Toastmasters club. You have something like that. So go there, look out for them, and find a way to join them and learn. So this guy, he won the Toastmasters public speaking competition in 2015. So he's on stage, and the first thing he does, he has a cigarette. He has a pack of cigarettes in his hands, and he has a lighter. He has a cigarette in his hand and a lighter, and then he puts the cigarette in his mouth with a lighter, and is about to light it right there on the stage. And people are looking at him, and then he looks at everybody and says, "What?" And he began saying that a lot of you are scared that I'm about to smoke here, and then you think that smoking can kill me. He puts away the lighter and the cigarette and says that, do you know that there are more people who die from a silent disease than from lung cancer from cigarettes? That silent disease is hypertension. So what he did an icebreaker and did some kind of contrasting. He was able to show us a picture of a cigarette and a lighter, and we were thinking, our mind was going, what does he want to do with that? Then he took us away from the bad effects of the cigarette and lung cancer and took us to the silent disease called hypertension. Isn't that interesting? So be creative about your primacy, because you know that people will remember your primacy. When you do that, you're doing what is called an icebreaker. Icebreakers are activities and games designed to engage the audience. You want to engage the audience using icebreakers. Now, what you don't know what to do at all as a speaker, when you don't know what to do, try this. Use a quote. Use a quote or use statistics. Use a quote or use statistics. Now, a quote is basically, look out for fantastic, become a collector of quotes. Collector of very fantastic quotes from top people. And I often tell people, I say, when you're giving a quote, make sure you quote the person verbatim. Don't quote the person, don't misquote the person, because when you misquote the person, you're taking them out of context. Quote whoever you're quoting verbatim. Don't paraphrase the person. That's the word. Don't paraphrase anybody. Quote the person as it is. So there are two things you memorize in speaking. You don't memorize your entire speech. You memorize, first of all, you memorize the quotes. And number two, you memorize the statistics. Now, if you're going to declare anything, say this, you must also tell us about the source. You're doing a statistic, tell us about the source so that we can, because don't underestimate the intelligence of the audience. People are actually watching and they know things, and there's Google, so people can actually search for the things you're sharing and find out that you're not right. So when you memorize your quotes, and then, of course, you also memorize your statistics. Your quotes should be quoted verbatim, very important. And if you're going to share a quote of someone we do not know before, it's important to tell us a little about him. So you say John Johnson once said, who is John Johnson? Now, John Johnson is the publisher of Ebony magazine. So let us know about that person if we don't know him generally. But unless you're talking about Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King Jr., even at that, it's important that you do a brief description of the person that you are quoting. So there are different kinds of quotes. We have historical quotes. Seneca once said, Plato once said, Aristotle once said. The thing about quotes is that when you spice your speeches or you pepper your speeches with quotes, it gives people the perception that you did a thorough job, that you're prepared. So don't just go on stage and sound very opinionated, as in someone who is just telling your thoughts. Reference people, talk about sources. It makes people feel that you're prepared. It makes people feel that you've done your homework. So quotes and statistics are very fantastic ways to get across to the audience as you begin your presentation. Now I'm going to talk about last two as regards primacy, then we'll go to recency. When it comes to the last two, let's talk about, there are many other ways actually, many other ways. So we're going to talk about protocol and begin with a question. Let's begin with protocol. Now, people don't know that when you go for a presentation, and there are different kinds of public speaking settings. There are different public speaking settings. So we actually have 4 of them. We have what is called formal settings, where executive meetings, business meetings, and they have a protocol. They have a way things are done. There's a way you greet people. There's a way you handle that kind of setting. Of course, there are certain icebreakers you won't do in an executive meeting, in a business meeting, when you're pitching, when you're doing an elevator speech, all right? So there's a protocol for that. There are political meetings, and if you're comparing the event or you're the one speaking, you've got to understand how to handle who is coming in, meet the MC, get the details, names, don't mispronounce names. Very important you understand the protocol of the event. We also have informal meetings. Now in informal meetings you can say hi guys, you can be more deliberate about your icebreakers. We have informal meetings. We have special occasion settings or special occasion meetings, where in those meetings you are trying to receive an award or valedictory speech, you're trying to give eulogy, whatever that is, you must understand the protocol around it. So the point is, understand the protocol of the meeting that you're presenting, and then begin with that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency. You don't use things like standing on existing protocol. That is only found in Nigeria, my country, Nigeria. You don't use those kind of statements in public speaking. You've got to, literally honor those you need to honor. All right, and then finally, the use of questions. Why do you use questions in speaking? You use questions to grab attention. You ask rhetoric questions to get to provoke thinking from the audience. These are a few ideas you can start using almost immediately to have a fantastic primacy, all right? And then you could also be one who draws from the previous speaker. I tell my students who speak that when you go for meetings, make sure that you attend early. Get to hear what the other speaker has said so that there's no contradiction. I usually tell the story of an experience. So this guy comes very late for a meeting, for a speaking engagement. He comes quite late because he's a big boy, so he comes late. And then the previous speaker was talking about the need to focus more on your content, on what's on your inside, and forget all of the peripheral nature of your, of packaging and so on. He talked about focusing on your inside. Don't judge a book by its cover. Go to the think content and so on. And he really spent some time doing that. Now, this second speaker, this big boy speaker, came in late and did not hear all of that stuff. So his own speech, he focused and emphasized a lot on it's important that you package. Packaging is everything and all of that. And so the audience sat down and kept wondering, do any dilemma? Which one should we pick? Should we focus on our content or should we focus on packaging? And that challenge happened because the second speaker did not come early enough to hear in context, to hear what the first speaker has said. And that will enable him to, customize his speech and tell, okay, you need to focus on content, but of course you also need to package. So drawing from the previous speaker, ideas and thoughts as your opening is a fantastic way to begin. Does it make any sense to you? So that's primacy. Primacy is key in speaking. So let's go to the recency. And I have a course I teach on 10 closing techniques, how you can best close your presentation. But I'm just going to give you a few ideas that will help you today. Now, if you're a teacher like I am, it's always very important that you recap and summarize your thoughts. You want people to go home with something. You want to recap and summarize your thoughts. So as you speak, you say, what have we said? You can highlight the points that you've mentioned. And that's why we often talk about the PREP formula, PREP. Prep formula. I don't have time to talk about that now, but if you've been following me carefully, you most likely have heard of the prep formula. And the idea basically is to enable you to get people to follow your trend of thoughts. People's attention is heightened at the opening and also heightened at the close. Between where you have the body, people's attention is not as much. And so one of the ways to engage them is to use the prep formula. The prep formula enables you to transition. Using pauses and icebreakers in between your opening and your close, bringing them close together will enable you to have more bites in your presentation. But again, the close is the real deal. Yes, the close is the real deal. Let me see if I can show you a few things about closing that will really help you to become better. I have taught public speaking for many years, very many years, and I can tell you this fact that Last words matter. People may forgive your bad opening, but they will not forgive your last words. Your last word is what they take home. And so you want to be very careful to make sure that it is memorable. So last word matters. So what I teach my students to do is plan your closing remarks word for word. Plan it. Sit down and write it out. Plan your conclusion, if that's what you understand. Plan your recency word for word. Realizing that people don't forget the close as much as they don't forget the opening. Think about your exit strategy. And again, your close is supposed to win the audience. So plan your closing remarks word for word. Now, comedians do this a lot. And I said that just as comedians should leave the audience laughing, a speaker should leave the audience thinking. Comedians say, okay, I have this one last joke, this last one, and I'll leave stage. Because the comedian, they're thinking about how do they want to be remembered by this audience, and their final presentation, their final joke is very, very important. So think about it. So I tell people, I say, look, as a speaker, write down your close and plan your close before you plan your opening. Did you get that? Plan your close before you plan your opening. Plan your close before you plan your opening. But plan your close before you write your title. It will really help you to focus a lot on the close. So we have different kinds of closes, and I have a course where I teach extensively on this. We have the challenge close. We have the demonstration close, where you use an icebreaker to close your presentation. We have suggestive close. We have a title close. We have a circular close. We have a quotation close. In fact, when you don't know what to do, you can actually close with a quote. We have an invitation close. We have a repetitive close. We have a congratulatory close, and we have a benediction close. So your closing is very important. End with a quote. Finalize your thoughts, and make sure that you galvanize people to take great actions. So I like to leave you with this thought that your opening is supposed to wow the audience. So what is your wow message? Your opening is supposed to wow the audience. Your body is supposed to woo the audience into that subject matter. And finally, your close is supposed to win the audience. So I challenge you to learn public speaking. Join me. Write down on the notes, the comment section. Join us as we put you through a process, a sequential, systematic teaching. Like tomorrow, we'll be having a Zoom training where we teach you public speaking, and you have the opportunity to ask me questions and to even do speeches that I can assess and evaluate. We have what's called the Speech Mastery Analyzer, where we assess you and find out how you can become better. Join us and learn how to speak, because you know what? Public speaking is a global skill. It's that one skill that will put you on the world stage, and you need to master it. And the best way to master it is not to just hear it or watch it like you're doing, but to practice. I'm that teacher that can help you. So write on the note, if you really want me to be your teacher, just write down in the comment section and let me know how you want to contact me. Send me, put out your phone number, your WhatsApp number. I'll reach out to you and get to help you. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd like you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, George ACN, and also to click on the notification button so every time we have new videos like this, you get to see it. Have a great time.